Hi, everyone. Pleased to be here with you. Hope you're having an awesome Google Cloud Next. I'm here to talk to you about something that I'm personally very excited about, and we at Google are very excited about, which is conversational applications, which includes bots. I hope you're as excited as me at the beginning of the session, or if not, by the end of it. Here we're going to introduce API.AI to you guys, which is a tool probably many of you are familiar with. It's our bot application development platform that we acquired last year. We're also we're going to go sort of beyond the basics and show you guys a little bit more tips and tricks. So you're going to hear from a couple people, Cornelius and Peter, that have been using API.AI, and they're going to share some of the lessons that they've learned while building conversational bots. So this is one of 3 different sessions we have on this topic of conversational applications. We had one yesterday, which focused on cloud functions and serverless architecture to serve conversational applications. We're now doing the middle session that you see on the slide, and then following after me, Brad and Guillaume are going to show you guys how to extend Google Assistant with actions on Google. So what is a conversational agent platform? Just go through this quickly. Probably a lot of you guys already know, but basically what it does is it takes natural language and it turns it into structured data that you can then use in your applications. So, for example, if a user orders a pizza and says what ingredients it has, the software will turn that into structured data, which says what's exactly inside the pizza, what type it is, and then you can actually act on it. What it doesn't do is, it doesn't really understand your domain and your vertical until you actually teach it and train it. You can give training examples that explain exactly what to do. And it also doesn't do any fulfillment. It's not actually going to bake a pizza and deliver it for you, unfortunately. That would be nice. But the good thing is, you're here at Google Cloud Next. You've probably been to a bunch of sessions. Most of this conference is about how to fulfill the back end of your application, and we think Google Cloud Platform is a great way to do that. So it's a very good complement to API.AI. And then, specifically, we're very proud of API.AI. We think it's pretty distinctive in the space. And a few of the important benefits that API.AI has is, it's an end-to-end suite. It really combines a bunch of different elements that you need for building conversational applications. It doesn't just do natural language understanding or just one component. It can get pretty smart very quickly. You're going to see that later on. I'm going to attempt to do something that's probably very risky and not very wise of me. I'm going to try and build in front of you guys from scratch a whole new conversational application in less than 20 minutes that handles an imaginary scenario. Hopefully it'll work, we'll see. But you can see the power of API.AI with a very small data set, what it's able to do. It's multilingual, already supports 40 languages. And we're investing in growing that. We want it to be as global as Google is. So there was a lot of speculation last year when we bought API.AI that we'll turn it into sort of a closed system that only works with Google software. The truth is far from it. API.AI works with all of the different messaging platforms that are out there. And we're very proud of that. And we're a very open company at Google. We actually, we want you to build the best conversational applications that work across all of the platforms that you're interested in. And we want to keep making API.AI the best cross-platform tool. So we're going to continue to support all of the platforms that are out there. So I'm just going to go through this sort of very quickly, but this is just an example architecture of how you can build a conversational application. So on the left-hand side, you can see all of the different channels where conversations can come in. So it starts from owned and operated websites or web apps or mobile apps. And you could have Google Assistant properties like Pixel, Allo, and Home, or you could have integrations with the different applications that I just showed you, all of the different messaging applications. And the other thing is you could have voice calls come in and be transcribed with Cloud Speech API and flown in. And all of those can get processed by API.AI, which handles the conversational aspect, including context, natural language understanding, and figures out how to involve the backend. And then through webhook integration, you can connect it to Google Cloud Platform to handle all of your backend needs, or any other platform that you want, and connect to other external systems like ERP, like CRM, whatever you need on the backend you can get there through Cloud Functions or any other Google Cloud Platform application service. Okay, so now to the demo. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to look at an imaginary Google hardware store, and we're going to try and create a conversational app that processes requests for that imaginary store, including service requests and commerce requests. So we're going to just quickly go through defining an entity, defining the intents, adding an ability to buy other items through a webhook, and then we're going to connect it to a messaging platform. Okay, so let's switch to the demo now. Okay, can everyone see my screen? How's the font size? Is it okay? Yes, people are saying yes. Okay, great. Okay, so let's start by defining an entity, and we'll list all of the products that we want to sell in the store. And so, let's say we want to sell a Pixel, and sometimes that is called Google Pixel, and it could also be in plural. So let's say Pixels and Google Pixels. And let's say you also want to sell a home, which could also be Google Home, and let's add the plural. And let's add a Chromecast to that. Chromecasts. And what else? Let's add a Chromebook. Okay, and that's enough. Let's save our entity. And now let's define our first intent. So let's make the first intent about service. And let's just add examples of how users would ask for service. So maybe one guy will say, I'd like to fix my Pixel. And you can see that APIAI automatically identified that Pixel is one of the products that I identified earlier. And it labeled it as a parameter name called products. I'm just going to change it to product, because we just want one product. I'm going to save this. And let's add a few more examples. Let's say, can I please buy a Chromecast? I'd like to get a Chromebook. Can I please? Oh, sorry. I'm mixing commerce and service. Let me redo this. I'd like to fix my Pixel. Can I please fix my Chromecast? My Chromebook is not working. And let's start with that. And let's test it now. So now I'm going to write, I'm going to take this example but use a different product. So instead of I'd like to fix my Pixel, let's try I'd like to fix my Chromebook. Okay, so that's great. So what you see is it identified a service of intent. An intent that is service, and it identified a parameter named product that is Chromebook, which is exactly what we wanted. Now let's add a response. Let's say, sure, no problem, dispatching service for product right away. Let's save, and let's test it. Can I please fix my Chromecast? And you can see it says, sure, no problem, dispatching service from Chromecast right away. And if I click on show JSON, you can see there's this very rich JSON that you can send to your backend, to your application, that can actually process everything that you need to do to actually dispatch someone out there. It's all structured information that you can act on right away. So this is great. And we have something that is doing service right now. Let's also add a commerce intent. And now let's say I'd like to buy 3 Chromecasts, please. Okay, so I'd identified quantity and product. So let's name this one as quantity. And instead of products, let's just call it product. And let's show a few more examples. So can I please get 5 pixels? Okay, so this one, it didn't auto-recognize, but we can easily fix that. I'm going to remove this. And instead, I'm going to mark the 5 as quantity and the pixels as product. And let's give it a couple more examples. Can I buy 7 Chromebooks? Please get me 2 pixels. Okay, looks like it's working. Let's also add a shipping address. So let's say, can you please send me for Google Homes to 5 Fifth Street, New York, New York. Okay, so it recognized that we have an address here. It marked it. Let's just show it the full thing. And then let's just mark quantity, and I'm going to save this. And let's add a response, adding quantity, product, and sending to address. I think this one we don't need. Let's delete it. And let's save. And let's test it out. Let's say, can I buy 5 pixels? Okay, let me try. I'd like to buy 5 pixels, please. Okay, you can see the intent it recognizes commerce. It got that it's a pixel. It got that it's 5. And the address is missing, obviously, because I didn't give an address. And so, it can't really respond because it doesn't have an address. But everything is working well. Now, the previous sentence I gave should have been recognized, but it wasn't recognized. So this is where API.AI really shines. You can actually go in real time and apply new training based on the data, the experiments you just made. So, this is what we tried earlier, service for Chromebook. That was correct. So I can mark it as correct. Can I please fix my Chromecast? That also worked well earlier. And this one did not work. Can I buy 5 pixels? Oh, I actually, there was a spelling mistake here. Maybe that's why it didn't work. But I can go back and actually assign this training data to what should have happened. And I can say, this should have been 5 quantity, not unit length, quantity, and pixel should have been a product. I can mark it with a check mark, and then from now on, it's gonna add that to the examples it knows how to recognize. And then this one should be commerce quantity, but I want to drag this. And pixels is the product. And checked, I'm gonna approve it. And now let's try another one. Let's try, can I buy 9 Chromecasts? Great, it recognizes commerce, recognizes Chromecast, recognizes 9. And now we see that's the same problem again, that it doesn't have an address, so it can't answer. So this is something really cool about API.AI. You can very easily turn this into a conversation where if I mark these 3 parameters as required, I can now talk to the user and ask it to fill the required field. So if it's missing a quantity, I can say, how many would you like to buy? And then for product, I can ask, which product are you interested in? Notice that there's room for multiple prompts. This is because we found that when you sometimes you want to ask the same question with multiple variations just to make it more interesting for users. So let's also ask, where would you like me to ship it to? And let's save this. And then let's try this again. Can I buy 7 Chromecasts? Okay. And so now you can see it's responding. It says, where would you like me to ship it to? And now I can tell it, 1 First Street, San Francisco, California. And then it responds, adding 7 Chromecasts and sending it to 1 First Street, San Francisco, California. Okay, this is all good and pretty awesome. Let's try one last one and then make this a little bit more complex. Let's try one that's missing, that's missing quantity. So I'd like to buy a few pixels. Now, I never actually trained it on a sentence that looks like that. If you look at the other ones, there's no place where I say a few, but it already understands that I want to do commerce. Actually didn't get the product this time. We'll fix that in a second. But I guess it's because of the few. How many would you like to buy? Let's give it 8 pixel. And where would you like me to ship it to? 7th Street, San Francisco, California. And now you can see it finishes the full thing. So we can go back on training and just tell it, that if you have something with a few, that still is a legitimate ask, and approve it. Okay, so now let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's say that you want to be able to feed this into your backend application, into some sort of shopping cart, and be able to add sort of multiple items from the same kind. So what I want to do here is have some sort of counter where I send this counter to my backend increments by 1, and then it sends it back to API.AI with an answer. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to create what we call a context. So I'm going to create a context called shopping cart. And now every time someone does a commerce operation, it's going to save it in the shopping cart. and I'm going to create another intent that requires shopping cart as an input. So this will now only happen if someone has a shopping cart. And let's say someone says, please add one more, or I'd like to buy another one, or another one, please. Let's call this buy another. Buy another. And now, let's add from shopping cart the product, and let's add the quantity, and let's add the address. This is number and address and shopping cart quantity and shopping cart address. Okay, let's save. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it to my webhook. And if it doesn't work, I'm just going to put error so that we know that it didn't actually go to the webhook. I just want to show you guys how that looks like. So you can see this is a webhook I created in Cloud Functions earlier that basically increments 1 to a context that comes from API.AI. I can show you guys the actual code. It's basically 4 or 5 lines of code, that's all. In Node.js, by the way, if someone's interested. So let's try it out. Let's see if it works. So let's start by I'd like to buy a Chromebook, please. Let's make it 2 Chromebooks, please. Where would you like me to ship it to? Let's say 77th Street, California, San Francisco. So it's great. It responds that it's adding it to my shopping cart. I get a context of a shopping cart. And now let's ask it for another one. And so you can see the response. Adding 1 more Chromebook, you now have 3 in your shopping cart. So what you see is it remembered the context of the conversation that you have a Chromebook. It sent it to our backend. The backend incremented by 1, sent it back, and now you're seeing the response at 3. If I try and trigger this again, please add 1 more. You'll see it says you now have 4 in your shopping cart of the Chromebooks. So, what you see here is, I didn't measure time, but I think in something like 10, 15 minutes, we basically built this whole conversation application. It does commerce, it does service. It'll get better the more we add more examples to it, the more it gets usage data, and the more we train it. But it can already handle a lot of queries pretty easily. Now, what I would like to do is I'm going to connect it here to Facebook Messenger. You can see we have one-click integrations, like very easy to start and stop. So let's just start it. And I'm going to go to Facebook Messenger, and now let's say I'd like to buy a Pixel, please. Obviously it's not working. Okay, perfect. How many would you like to buy? We're going to tell it 6. Thank you. Let's give it an address. 6th Street, San Francisco, California. And now let's try the last thing, another one where it goes directly to our webhook. And now you can say it says 7. So that's it, guys. This is. Thank you very much. We got through this together. You can see just how easy it is to create a conversation application that's really powerful, and with ease you can connect it automatically to all of those cross-platform applications you saw earlier. You can put it on your own website in your own mobile app, or work through it with the different messengers. Very, very exciting. So there'll be Q&A later, but now I'd like to invite to the stage Cornelius, that is going to show us a little bit more about what they've done at Bosch. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So thanks, Dan. My name is Cornelius. I'm working at Bosch Thermotechnology. We are Europe's leading OEM for heating appliances, boilers, appliances who prepare hot water for you. So can you switch to the slide desk? Slide desk. Okay, I go on. Okay, thanks. Okay, and our devices became more and more smarter the last years. So we have now out-of-the-box IoT connectivity built in our devices. So if you sell a Bosch appliance, a Bosch boiler, you will get out-of-the-box IP support. You can connect your app to it and remote control it. So that's fine, but we have a problem. We lose the contact more and more to the customer. So how get the interface back to the customer if the device becomes more and more smarter? And our approach was that we try to figure out how a conversational bot can be used to keep in contact to our devices. And how does it work? So we have, at the end, from a software architecture perspective, mainly 4 layers. On the left side, you can see the interaction with the user, integrated in Skype, Slack, Facebook Messenger, whatever, your own homepage. And the user can send a message to the API.AI chatbot. That chatbot processes the intent, as shown by Dan before, and the intent detection fires then HTTP call to the webhook. And the webhook is now a piece of software we have developed which maps the API.AI intent to a domain-specific API call, so to a call to our boiler. And the boiler can, in that case, set a new room temperature set point to a new value, respond with a HTTP OK, and then we can prepare a fulfillment message in our webhook to respond to the message of the user. API.AI then routes that message back to the originated messaging application, and then it's done. The boiler has set a new temperature, and hopefully the user needs is fulfilled. So let's have a look on the demo. So back to the demo. So here I have a demo setup. On the left side, you can see our internet portal, which is already available. So here you can control your heating appliance, can set some values, for example, the current room temperature set point, the hot water set point for your shower and bath. And you can, for example, prepare a holiday mode. If you are leaving the home, the device is going to standby, and you can save a lot of money if the heating device is switched off. On the right side, I have connected here my iPhone, and Skype is opened, and you see, like in the demo before with the Facebook Messenger, we have a bot as a chat contact, and then you can say, okay, for example, I will be on holiday. Now I have used Siri to transform speech to a chat message, and then a required parameter is missing. To call the API of the boiler, I need the date period, and the bot asks me for that next week. I will send this next week, and the magic in API.AI transform then next week in a date period, which could be processed by our API, and next week, hopefully, is transformed in a date. And if our portal works fine, maybe we have to refresh it. Holiday mode is switched on with the desired date period, and we are done. So use conversational UX thanks, to keep in contact with your device, and that's a good possibility for us. So let's dig a little bit more into development issues. How do we have done this? It's the same setup we have seen by Dan before. We have different use cases, so we can activate the holiday mode. You can set or get the auto temperature. You ask the boiler if you want to take a shower, if the hot water is prepared, and so on. And you can set your schedule of the boiler with a sentence, and yeah, that's fine. But let's stick to the activate holiday mode. So I have prepared some utterances, and yeah, Dan has showed this already. And I have one required parameter, it's the date period. And then I have switched on the webhook for the fulfillment presentation. And I want to use it here. And now I take the JSON here, which is processed, and copy it out. And then keep this in mind. And now I switch to our backend implementation. Oh, my VM is switched off, so let's be patient till it is up and running. So we are developing our backends in .NET. We're using Visual Studio for that. And it was really easy for us to use APIAI. Oh, sorry for that. Yeah, let's keep on talking. Corporate, yeah. Corporate networks are not a good thing for developers. Okay, how to integrate it in a .NET solution? I have a web API project up and running. And the first thing I have to do is I use the Nugget package manager, and I add the Nugget package from APIAI. So they provide many integration SDKs for Node, for JavaScript, for everything. So that's the first thing. I added that Nugget package. Then I prepare my controller. Here you have the root prefix of that controller, which receives then the post message. Here it's the post annotation, and you get a JSON body out of that post message. And here it's the model from API SDK, which is provided by the Nugget package. And that model is then in a form which you can process easily. And here I have added some if-else switches. You can also use a switch statement, doesn't matter. And how to test it now locally on your machine before deploying it in the cloud and connecting it directly to the chatbot. So I use here now the debug mode locally on my laptop and use Postman, or you can use any other REST client. Paste the JSON in, you have formally copied out of the APIAI console, and then fire that post to the local host. You can see it here. It's now my local webhook. And if I switch back to Visual Studio, hopefully, it holds on the line where the activate holiday mode intent is processed, and the action name was called activate holiday mode. And now I have to read out the parameter, so the date period, and you have here a result structure. It's well formed, and you have here the parameters, and you see, okay, it's very small, but you have one parameter. It's named date period, and it has that value, and you can fetch out that key value pair out of that structure. And then I have an API manager class which separates all our domain-specific API away from the controller. Then I call the set holiday mode, activate it, and activate the date period. So that's the domain-specific API call. And then I prepare the fulfillment, and the fulfillment is the response of the chatbot to the user. And here I do it yeah, mostly like Dan before in the console. I replace a placeholder key with the date period the user was expected. And then I return a OK, so HTTP 200. And if I go back to the postman, then you can see here the fulfillment, which is also JSON and which is sent back later on if you deploy it to the cloud to the APIAI chatbot. And that's overall the thing we have prepared. We try to launch this in the next 2 months with the MVP approach, so test it with a few users. Record what the users say to the bot to learn how we should improve our utterances, which fires the intent. And then we are excited to see the response of the users. And we start to deploying it not to Facebook and to Skype. We start to adding that chatbot to our internet portal. So we have an interface, HTTP interface to APIAI, and then you can use it also in your web portal. So APIAI was really seamless. It takes 2 or 3 days to set it up and running with our real boilers. I have to prepare that I switch off the holiday mode later on because my wife says, if you come back and it's cold, you're fired. Yeah, okay. So we have out-of-the-box language support, and that was really good language support even for European languages. So we can use German as a language and Italian, French out of the box with APIAI. Other solutions does not fulfill that requirement. And here we do not have to translate the speech with Google Translate before sending it to APIAI. We can directly use German or Italian or French as a language. So thanks. I would like to welcome Peter from ENG to show the next demo.
Thanks, Cornelius. All right, excellent. So my name is Petr Netušil. I work in Applied Machine Learning Department at ING. Let me figure out how this works. Works good. So there we get to experiment with all sorts of fun new stuff like AI, machine learning, NLP. And I'm excited to show you today what we have been building with APIAI, and hopefully give you some tips on how you can get started yourself and something on top of what has been shown here. But well, first, ING, big global bank. But actually, my bosses recently realized we're not a bank anymore. We are an IT company in the financial industry. And as an engineer, I find it excellent. I find it transition great. And good thing they also didn't just, said it like that, but they invested almost $1 billion, if I calculate-ish correctly, into digital transformation to make that happen and to make sure that we are on the platform as our clients are as well. But anyway, let's go to the deep, gory details of the solution. So this is our architecture. And maybe good to know, this is also our bot. It's Marie, our digital assistant. So she can help you with everything about cards. So that is the kind of domain we have selected for our pilot. And what you see, perhaps immediately, is that the architecture is different. So normally, the traditional architectures would talk to APIAI directly and then do some webhook fulfillments out of that. But we said, no, we want to control, we want security, we want logging, we want we want to do it better. So we actually place our conversational logic in the middle. So I'll fly you through how this works. So you start from any channel, Facebook Messenger, Skype, or some other channel, and then you go to the conversation logic that will basically route between all these different APIs. So if it's just APIAI, the discussion, you talk to APIAI. So everything, again, happens via some REST calls, HTTPS, CRUD requests like you have seen before. Or you can route to sentiment analysis, which is something I'm going to show you, and we are very excited about too. So that's based on the Google Natural Language API. We have also built a sentiment analysis and intervention dashboard, which is based on WebSocket, so you have a real-time kind of connection between the server and the client. We have also Twilio for authentication. And lastly, and for us at least more importantly, we hooked it up all to our ING APIs, and we will get live data from this moving forward. So if my corporate laptop will work, and we can very kindly switch to it. We have even the sound, very good. Dear number, perfect. So, Marie, our bot, let's just start with her. So what she will ask you immediately is, you can get started about questions of and requests about ING cards. Now, typically what we see in Belgium a lot is that a lot of people are just calling us like, hey, I don't know, where is my card? And we get lots of these calls. So they would ask, hey, I ordered it last week, and now it's not there anymore. And did you send it? Did you not send it? So one instance we have programmed is where is my card? And Marie, what she'll try to do now is to authenticate me, because we don't want just everyone, to know these details. So our demo profile, Robert, has born on 1st of May, 1967. Now, what happens is we're going to match the user uniquely based on the first name, surname, and the birth date, and get a one-time verification token. Yes, we got it. The demo gods are with us today. And I can put something random completely, but it won't work. But let's be nice to Marie and put the right one. So it's 129335. Right. So what happens now, we get authenticated for the next 10 minutes, so you don't need to put these tokens back and forth all the time. And we get the right delivery address details. Works. So this is one of the use cases I wanted to show you. But the thing is, we are extremely excited about bots ourselves, but maybe not everyone is. They are still young and they are still learning. And what could theoretically happen, or more practically, is that someone dislikes it. So saying, I know this bot is terrible. My God. And what was that? So, so it's our sentiment analysis dashboard triggering that. Thank you. If you have ideas for a better sound, please talk to me after the session. Right, so this is basically, the WebSocket I was talking to you about. So there's a server-to-client integration which triggered that. So let me deal with it. So here you see transcripts, or a dashboard of all the different sessions. Today or now is just one, and you see the different sentiment which is happening. But what is interesting here is that I can actually go inside that full chat transcript. I see everything here, and I can pause the bot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop Marie and just start a conversation as if I would be someone controlling and managing that online conversation. So, hi, this is someone alive. I want to get out. It's going to be a little bit silly now because I'm going to have that conversation with myself. But the point is, API.AI is not responding now, and I have a full control of what is happening. Okay, so you see that point. Now, to get a bit of to satisfy the development and coding people amongst yourself, let's actually see how ridiculously simply you can implement this yourself. So this our conversation logic is built on Node.js. And this is how you can require the Google NPM package. So hopefully you will use this commented line and not this hacked way which we used over here. And then you just call a method that is the detect sentiment method, and you wait for a callback. And you get a callback back after some time, and then you do whatever you want with that sentiment value. So it's extremely simple, and I think the guys at Google done a great job with that one. Right. let's go to the API.AI and how we implemented this. So what I wanted to show you and how we use to trigger the conversational logic is like this. So say, where is my card or something else. The JSON line you are interested in is this one. So there is an action, and just using that action, you can program anything manually for fulfillment further on. But what is maybe more interesting here, and I'm going to take you to our development Marie, is that once your bots are going to be scaled further, and you are going to build a lot of different intents and conversations, it will get messy. It will be back and forth, and people will not not just follow the pre-programmed line. So you want to be able to still navigate within that conversation. Now, one of the ways we found, at least for ourselves, how you can do that in API.AI is to create first some kind of a naming convention, because otherwise it's a big mess, and understand that for one use case, there's actually many intents which you can use. So say there is a use case activate card, but one kind of use case is more intents which you want to trigger. So you want to start with the first intent, and then pass these contexts up until the last one. So let's see how it looks. So you see that the first intent has no input context, but just the output context, and then you want to pass those along the conversation. Here are the utterances. Typically, you would put hundreds of them, which we have in our to be live version. And then what is also interesting here is managing the conversation. So here we put the response without the parameter, and here with the parameter. And only if you have that parameter, as Dan showed you before, it will be triggered. All right. So I hope you guys liked our little demo. I'm very happy to connect with you, during the conference. And yeah, thank you for watching. Yeah. So we're going to have a bit of a Q&A. So I'd like to call Cornelius and Dan back to the stage. And well, fire away. And the nice guys over there ask us that if you can come back to the mic so that everyone can hear you. Voila.
We can probably switch back to the slides, I guess.
Yeah. Questions?
If anyone has a question, please, come up to the mic.
Yeah, or just shout very loud.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for the great demo. One question is, what did you do about analytics? You said API.AI is a complete system. I didn't see any analytics link.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't have any analytics built into API.AI right now. There's a bunch of other vendors that we work with that provide analytics where, if you connect with me offline, I'm happy to recommend
Well,
it.
the way we approach it, we log everything, and we have our data scientists get crazy on it. So maybe that's a way how you can do that too.
And sorry, question for you. You saw you interrupted the Facebook conversation and had a manual intercept. How did you do that?
Manual intercept of what?
The conversation. You sort of had a manual intercept into the bot conversation. How did that, what did you use?
So it's in Node.js. I've said that there's a global parameter, for all the sessions you can set up whether it's paused or not, and then you manage it based on that. So I can show you later on if you want in detail.
Okay, thank you, thanks.
Anyone else?
I have a couple of...
There is actually a line. That's great.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is regardless ambiguity, when figure out the intent. Can I have two intents that technically take the same number of entities? And how does it figure out? Let's say I have one intent that is supposed to act on a negative set of words, and the other one that acts on positive.
Yeah, so it learns by language. So if you set up the intent with examples of negative sentences and a set of entities, and then a different intent that has positive sentences and even the same entities, API.AI knows how to figure out which intent to choose according to your examples.
And can you load the entities from, let's say, a transactional table that you are continuously updating all day long?
Yes, yes. You can import or export from the UI, and also there's a full backend API that you can access everything programmatically, which we didn't show today, but it's all documented on the website.
And does that require retraining every time there's a new entity on the table?
Yes, but it's training happens very quickly. In fact, the model was trained multiple times during my demo. It happened in the background. You didn't even notice.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Awesome demo. Thanks, guys.
Some load balancing here, yeah.
I had a question on the difference between the toy applications and when you went to production. It seems like you'd have combinatorial explosion in natural language. And how did you handle that? You said you had hundreds of the templates up there.
So we are not live yet. We will be live in a few months. But the way we have approached it is we have lots of user sessions, and we basically had people coming out and say, just tell me how would you ask this question. And we have, I think we have hundreds and hundreds of, just per one small intent, hundreds and hundreds of utterances programmed over there. Just, trying to get it run. I think it's easy and fun to do a bot, but it's difficult to do it right. So, this is one of the parts where you need to do it right.
If you're interested, you should check out the third session, which is about actions on Google and talking about how to build conversational actions. They're going to talk a lot about lessons of how how to build like a write bot and write conversational interfaces that think about all of those different expressions. One thing we see a lot of people do is use cards and buttons, which sort of helps simplify the experience for some users, but make that optional. So give the user the option of whether they want to use the cards or whether they want to type in natural language.
Would the semantic analysis help in that regard?
Yeah. It's like some users love to type and they want to express themselves that way, while others just want the fastest way of getting things done, right? So you give them both, and then they pick whatever they want.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm not sure if I know how to ask this question right, but every demo that I've ever seen on conversational UI is always one-on-one. What about the bot being kind of a moderator of a conversation between multiple people?
Good question. So the way that it's structured is it's built on a conversation, and it has as context all of the prior conversation that happened. So if you have a conversation with multiple people and one bot, then as long as your intention is for it to remember what everyone else is saying, then you're good to go. Then it doesn't change anything in the logic.
Yeah, like if you were trying to figure, hey, we're going out for dinner, and here are 5 different places we want to go.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Right, like Google Assistant in Google Allo. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Hello. Great talk. Great demo.
Thanks.
I like that question too. I guess 2 things. One, are there push notifications with this yet? Could you set something that eventually the chat will just, chime in when a counter goes off, or you set a reminder?
So I don't think so. But let me get back to you. Are we back to the slides? Okay. Send me an email, and I'll get back to you.
The way you can solve this is actually to trigger it, at least in our case, to trigger it from your conversational logic. So that's why we put our thing in the middle to say, hey, let's fire up a push notification. So,
so you would say show me the status or something, and then you would get back. Is that what you're saying?
Not
from
not
outside
really.
of.
It's from an application side, not from API directly. Yeah.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. And quick question about deployment. So you had a dev environment and production. Would you just edit the interface, or do you version control that?
Good question.
Cornelius?
Of Cornelius, yeah.
I didn't get it right, so can you repeat it?
Oh, so you had a dev environment and a prod. Do you version control the configurations? How would you deploy your dev to prod?
Yeah, we version control. We use Git. We have different environments, staging, testing, and dev. And we deploy it with a continuous integration environment. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I think there's version control many levels. On the code we use Git like in any other person in the world. But for API.AI directly, we just created different bots. And what you can do is just extract one bot, just export everything there is, and just import it in another bot. And
so you can export as a zip
it's
file.
export, import.
So all
it's like that,
configuration of the bot itself, not your code. So I didn't get it. So the configuration of the bot can be exported as a zip file, and you can store it, save it in and you can import it later on with intents, entities, contexts, all available.
Oh, perfect.
And it's at the end, it's a JSON file.
Oh, cool. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Manually.
Manually.
So one of your early slides showed Cortana and Alexa.
Right.
Is it trivial for me to create a bot that then interacts with Google Home, Alexa, Cortana?
Yeah.
Trivial connection kind of issue?
Yeah. So their interfaces are slightly different, right? And so the data that they send to other applications and back, the format is a little different, but we've built our connectors to try and minimize that sort of interruption as much as possible so that our developers can focus on the actual conversational logic. For the most part, you can build one logic and connect it to multiple connectors.
Build,
now,
connect.
Yeah. Now, the caveat is when you're talking to Google Home by voice, versus if you're texting on Google Allo or Facebook Messenger, the users speak sometimes in a different way, use different words, and the way you want to talk back to them is also different. Like on a chat, you might want to show them cards with like a map, or maybe you want to write a long paragraph of text. When you're reading back on Google Home, you don't want to read back a long paragraph of text because users will get bored, right? So you actually may want to build different conversational experiences for each one, but if you wanted to create a single experience, you could.
And from a technical point of view, you have to make a trust relation between Facebook and API.AI, and you generate an API key at Facebook or Skype or whatever, and copy that API key into the API.AI console, and that's all. So trust relation is there, and then Skype can talk to API.AI and respond to that message.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Okay, 2 minutes left, so maybe like 1 or 2.
Good afternoon. I was trying to build a toy project the other day in which I used your built-in address, street address entity. I noticed that in our test data, there's certain address that's rather unusual construct, never get recognized. So I add those to the training data, but it just doesn't seem correct that. So what do we recommend developer to do for a situation like this when the black box fails?
Yeah, so it might be a bug. So I would we have a community forum. I would report it in the community forum, and we can look into it and see if it's a bug.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so my first question is is there a way to resume a conversation, or it's all within one conversation? And
so that was on yours, right? On
well, it could be. So if you mean the bot pause, you can just flip it back and forth. So as an agent, you have full control. You can just start it, stop it whenever you like. And secondly, every session we have with the bot is in memory, so we remember everything you did, you said, and all the context you have had. So you resume anytime you'd like.
Okay, cool. And a bit more about the development life cycle. You said we can export and import the configuration. What about is the training data as part of the configuration? So
all the utterances, like the hundreds I was talking about, it's there.
And okay, just to confirm, the last question is what level of certainty, giving a certain training data, will the response will be always the same, or it's behind the scene, we don't know? So
it's machine learning based, right? So the more you give it, the more training data you give it. Every time you give it more data, it could change the potential answer. But we do give a confidence score with the results, so you can see sort of how
So it's part of
confident
the
we are with
JSON.
intent.
You can see the confidence level. It's
Yeah.
80%, 90%, or lower, and you can decide by your own if it is lower to give a. Yeah.
So we're at time, but thank you everyone so much for coming. This
Thank
has
you.
been great, and have a great rest of Google Cloud Next.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter Cornelius.